Welcome back, everyone. So there's 89 more days until the midterm election. And during this time, there's always this attempt to motivate the black community to go out and vote. And that conditions, if we vote in a particular party, and I'm just going to say it, it's usually the Democrats, and they come out and try to project to us that if we come out to vote for them, things will get so much better for us. That's the furthest from the truth. Because what this time does is it proves that a lot of you put more faith and trust in politicians than you do God Himself. And really, all the opportunities and the rights that you do have did not come from politicians. Now, many of you will say that, oh, well, it was Abraham Lincoln that freed us. No, that's not the case. Abraham Lincoln was caught or recorded saying that he didn't care about slavery. He just wanted to unite the country back. And I'm just going to kind of paraphrase with that. So, what does this prove then? It proves that our ancestors who were actually enduring the harsh conditions of slavery, to some extent, had more sense than what we do now. In most cases, a lot of us believe that we have all the sense in the world, but we don't. You see, it's not politicians that freed us. It's us crying out to God Himself to get us out of these harsh conditions. And one phase of that was disbanded to a point, and we no longer have to endure physical bondage. However, we're dealing with mental bondage. It's mental bondage that's causing you to think that a politician is going to make things better for you, when all they've done is just lie to you. You know, we should be done with politicians at this point, because all a politician is going to do is tell you what you want to hear, and then they renege on any promises that they've made to you, and they get convenient amnesia, and then nothing happens for you at all. Really, what we do need is a statesman to represent our community. A statesman will tell you what you need to hear rather than what you want to hear. And regardless of how harsh it comes out, it turns out in the long run that what a statesman will tell you is the truth. And it's something that you really needed to hear. The last true statesman that we had that I can think of was Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali. Both of those men told it like it is. What Malcolm X said was that liberals will pretend to like you, but do nothing for you and basically work against you behind closed doors. Where the conservative will be more outright and just say how they truly feel. We can respect that. But the point I want to make is during slavery, we did not have voting rights. So what freed us? Crying out to the Most High, who the world would call God. That's what freed us. We didn't get freed from voting. We didn't have the ability to vote. We didn't have the right to vote. And isn't it ironic that now that we have the right to vote, our conditions have deteriorated? Even more so after the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Because then we no longer put our faith and trust in God Himself. We put our faith and trust in man, where you're going to lose every time you do that. Unless it's a man of God that is listening and speaking the words that God wants to disclose to us. But we're not in this position from voting. So that's why I think it's ridiculous when people will come out and say, oh, well, people died for you to vote. No, they didn't. They died fighting back. And for some of you, my message is stop putting all your faith and trust in man. You're always going to lose. We need to go back to our roots and put everything back into having faith and trust in God Himself. And then whatever condition we're dealing with, we're going to come out of it. Many of you don't even realize that we're the true chosen people of God Himself. Just read Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68, where it discusses all the harsh conditions that God's chosen people will have to endure. There's also scripture that says, I will raise you up in the land of your captivity, or the lands of your captivity. We're still in the land of our captivity. The Bible also says that we would be under harsh conditions for 400 years. We would be afflicted, is the word that was used. And that was something that was prophesied to Abraham. But yet, some of you will teach your children to only vote Democrat. And you are part of the reason why we're in the condition that we're in. Democrats don't care about us. And I don't care how many black politicians are within the Democratic reigns, we're still not going to get anything because we have too many black politicians instead of black statesmen. We need statesmen that are actually going to say what we need to hear and follow up and do what they say they're going to do rather than just promise and go absolutely nowhere. So each election that goes by, we put all our faith and trust in one particular party, the Democrats, and then every 2 years, we're right back to square one. When a lot of you have not called out the Democrats like you're supposed to. One, how is it that there have been numerous administrations that have had the presidency, the House of Representatives, and the Senate? Why was there never a black hate crime bill? Why was there never any reparations given out? We've given out reparations, and to some extent we still do to this very day, based off of actions that took place during World War II. President Trump just proved that you don't have to have some committee to give out reparations. He can just do it. But some of you will criticize any black person that has independent thinking and critical thinking, saying that, no, I'm not going to vote for the Democrats. Now, I'm not saying the Republicans are any better, but let me give you some insight as to the different ideologies between Republican and Democrat. So if you're interested in starting your own business, then this is going to click for the Republicans because the Republicans are more business oriented or more business friendly, where they're not going to tax you to death trying to run a business. Where the Democrats, because they are very controlling, they're going to nickel and dime you for every little thing that they can for anyone trying to start a small business. And most of the funding for this country, or the tax dollars, comes from small businesses. And what the Democrats are trying to do is they're trying to eliminate the middle class. And that's something that was evident when Joe Biden's administration hired 87,000 IRS agents. He claimed that it was for the upper class, but there's one thing wrong with that. Most of the people in the upper class already have lawyers set up to combat that. So they have enough money where they can let the case continue on so that the government is spending money with these court cases. So it's easier to go after the middle class. And really, Democrats want it to be just upper and lower class. They want to get rid of the middle class altogether. Republicans, on the other hand, they believe in small government. Democrats believe in having a committee for every little thing that you could think of, which causes you to pay more taxes to fund these different groups, where Republicans will say they want small government. They don't believe in all of these different committees for everything. I'm not saying that if you don't vote Democrat that you should strictly vote Republican, because that's not changing anything. You don't want either side to believe that they have the black vote. You need to keep them guessing, because if either party knows that they have the majority of your votes, they're not going to do anything for you. You figure you're just going to give your votes to them anyway. And that's what we've been doing for just about the last 60 years, all because of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And here, most of you don't even understand that the president at the time, Lyndon B. Johnson, was overheard saying the only reason he was going to push that through was so he could have you, derogatory word, voting Democrat for the next 200 years. 60 of those years, you've proven him right. Here, Democrats have not really done anything for us ever since then. And you still would give your vote to the Democrat. And then even when your children see through the nonsense that the Democrats are doing, and they say they're going to vote against the Democrats, you chastise them. So you're just contributing to the problems that we still endure. The thing that we should be doing the most is we need to separate ourselves from both Democrats and Republicans and become independent. That way, both parties will try to appeal to your vote, and whoever's able to appeal to your vote, they're going to have to realize that they're going to have to hold up their end of the bargain. Because if they don't hold up their end of the bargain, you're not voting them in again. And if it means that we have to sit out several elections to get our point across, then that's what we need to do. But the primary thing is we have to pray on our decisions and console with the Most High himself. Doing things on your own and out of emotion has proven that it doesn't work for us. Look at what the Democrats were trying to do. For those of you who still believe in vote blue no matter who, it was the Democrats that flooded the gates at the border with illegal immigrants. Not only did they do that, we had no idea who these immigrants were affiliated with because they did no investigating whatsoever. It was just, oh, you're an illegal immigrant or you're an immigrant? Oh, just come on in. We'll give you a cell phone that will contact you in 7 years when your case comes up. But I can guarantee you right now that most of those phones, the illegal immigrants changed the SIM card in. So now there's still people in this country that we don't even know where they are. And many of you bash the Trump administration for kicking these people out. You don't even realize that it's a national security issue. You can't have people in a country that you don't even know what their affiliation is. A lot of these immigrants had criminal backgrounds, serious criminal backgrounds. So the one thing that we've done is, as a whole, is we didn't march with them when they were demanding that they get citizenship and demanded that the Trump administration gets rid of ICE and has ICE stop kicking them out. But Democrats want ICE disbanded. That's somewhat treasonous, wouldn't you say? We shouldn't have any influences from immigrants in our government. Illegal immigrants, I must say. But here you have the Democrats that want ICE disbanded and want their funding taken away. Because what it really comes down to is Democrats realize that you're getting wiser each election, and that scares them. So instead of changing their message and actually doing what they should do, they've decided to try to replace you with illegal immigrants, figuring that if they give them a ton of free stuff, that is going to motivate them to vote for them. They're already voting in our elections. Some of them, not all. In certain states and areas, illegal immigrants have voted, which is why we should have voter ID. Now, they tried to say that voter ID was racist against black people, but that's not true, regardless of how you look at it. But Most black people want an ID so we can do certain things. Driver's license. The majority of us prefer to get a license rather than trying to fake like we have it, because once you're pulled over, you're in a bad position. And then, unfortunately, because of what we go through, we're quick to go to the state store or to the bar. So, we're going to have an ID for that so we can consume alcohol. We're going to have an ID so that we can cash our check. Newsflash, the majority of us still have jobs. So we're going to want to have an ID so we can get our own money. It doesn't matter if we have a bank account or not, but we definitely have that ID so that we can cash our check. The majority of us are not working somewhere where we're paid under the table. The majority of us want a legitimate job that's going to issue a check to us so that we can go and cash it. And there's certain rights that you have when a job issues a check to you rather than paying you under the table. Because paying you under the table, you're not a legal employee. But many of us fall for the different tricks that the Democrats try to use. And let's point out something else. Democrats are the original party of the Klan. Now, many of you think that after the Civil War, things got better for us. It didn't. The reason why the South was completely different still after the Civil War was because the president that took over after Lincoln was unalived, Lincoln was a Republican, but his vice president was a Democrat. And people thought that when that Democrat took over, that he was going to follow down behind Lincoln. So after the Civil War, U.S. troops were placed in numerous areas in the South to help with Reconstruction and to bring down the hostilities that was very evident in the South because, technically they lost, but they gained a win with that Democratic vice president who took over because all he did was he yanked the U.S. troops out of those areas. So then the South didn't lose, they actually won. And that's why the South was very blatant with some of the things they were doing. But again, it wasn't just the South, it was the North also. It still is. But we have to come together and pray our situation away rather than put all of our faith and trust in Democrats or just politicians in general. Because as I said, a politician is going to tell you everything you want to hear and then not follow up at all. We need statesmen. Statesmen is going to do what they say and tell you what you need to hear so that you can change your ways as well. We shouldn't even be in this condition that we're still in. What have the Democrats done for you lately? What have the Republicans done for you lately? That's why you don't side with either one. You stay in the middle. Because I don't know if the majority of you realize that it's not Democrats that determine presidential elections or even midterm elections. It's not Republicans that determine elections. It's independents. So if you're able to appeal to independents, then you'll get in. But just remember a couple things. And I know I'm being harsh with the Democrats because it's the Democrats that try to get us to vote for them when they do nothing for us. Just remember a couple things. And I know the economy is bad now under Trump, but just remember it was the Democrats' bad policies that skyrocketed inflation from 1.4% when Trump's first term ended, and inflation shot all the way up to 9.3% within a year and a half of Trump leaving office. Now, many who voted for Trump thought that he was going to be the same way that he was in his first term, and he isn't. We're in a conflict that we never should have been involved in, mainly listening to a smaller country that has always had it out for Iran for the last 20 years, and even said the same thing about Iraq with the weapons of mass destruction. Nothing was found. So it's unfortunate that Trump has a soft spot for a certain leader listening to them, because now we're in this conflict and it's destroying the entire economy. Prices are skyrocketing up. It's just not to the degree when the 46th president was in office. But it was obvious he wasn't running anything. His administration was. And he didn't really have much say so in. Because for one, it's pretty evident that he didn't know what day it was, or even surprisingly know what his own name was. So this proves, because of even what's going on now from the conservatives, this is why you don't side with either party. And you don't put all your faith and trust in politicians. I know I keep saying it, but I want this to sink in. Voting did not get us out of slavery. Praying to the Most High did. And when you give everything to him, everything would get much better. It could have been better for the last 60 years. But a lot of you chose to put all your faith in politicians that care nothing about you. Really. And it's not just us. The majority of the population in this country they don't care about. And you see we're getting closer and closer to being a communist nation. Look at some of the policies that the Democrats are trying to push. They are the party of Wall Street. The majority of the Democrats have their pockets laced from Wall Street money and lobbyists. It was just recently revealed within the last few weeks that even Cuba has their spies in this country infiltrating politicians. So that's another small country that has their hands in the pockets of our politicians. No wonder this country's in the condition it's in. We don't have people in office like other countries that have the foresight to see some of the issues we're going to have to deal with and try to deal with it, to try to be better prepared. Now, this is on both parties, but do you realize that your electricity is going to be under threat next year because the grid can't handle even the current output now? So any additional strain is going to cause rolling blackouts, because this country has done nothing with the electrical grid for 40 years. And I think even with a nuclear power plant, it takes close to 20 years to even get that up and running. I could be wrong, but other countries had the foresight to know that they're going to need more energy. So they've taken the steps to do so. Now, for us, it's going to be a problem. So what I would even tell some of you to do is look into a solar generator. Get some solar batteries to link up to your home so that you have some form of power in case the grid goes down. We need to start preparing ourselves for stuff. There could be food shortages. If you're not able to grow your own food, then look into some of the freeze-dried food. And every pay, put something towards that. There's a possibility of a cyber attack on our water infrastructures. So what does that mean? You need to be prepared and start stocking up on water. And it's said that for every person that's in your home, you need at least a gallon a day to get you through. So if it's just yourself, you need at least 30 gallons of water. But also, I'm going to also add that maybe you should stock up with some of the tap water you have now and use that to help flush by pouring that into the toilet after you use it. Because there could be a situation where there's no running water at all. Now, We're currently in conflict with China, not in a hot war, but we're more in a cold war with China right now. China has prepared for any energy concerns. And because they have upgraded their electrical grid, do you realize that they pay less for electricity than we do? On average, we pay about 30 cents per terawatt or kilowatt, whatever it is. And China pays 8 cents per kilowatt. That's a problem. If we didn't have politicians that were so greedy and just about the here and now instead of looking to the future, we wouldn't be in this predicament. We're dealing with increasing energy prices. That could have been dealt with 20 years ago. And who was president 20 years ago? It was George W. Bush. But we were too busy concentrating on Iraq because they allegedly had weapons of mass destruction. And I know a couple of years ago, it was said that some of these computers that run the electrical grid and other infrastructures were running off of Windows XP. And our government never upgraded because they said it was too expensive. But wouldn't it be even more expensive if you wait longer and longer and as prices are going up on different things? So now it's going to be even more astronomical than it would have been if we had just started upgrading 20 years ago, because now prices have skyrocketed up. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled by these antics by either party for the midterm elections. If you're not in agreement with them, don't vote for them. Don't vote for the other person that you figure is the lesser of two evils, because it's still two evils. And there needs to be more accountability for us voting these people in. If they don't have your interests, your best interests at heart, don't vote them in. Sit it out. But like I said, remember the Democrats tried to replace you with illegal immigrants. And if you put them back in, that's what's going to happen again. And they're going to feel more emboldened to do it because you let them.